Hey, welcome to the 20th lesson on C++. In this lesson, we will explore the topic of friend functions or, in other words, friend methods in the C++ language. Friend functions are functions that can access the private members of your class. In other words, these functions have access to the data declared with the private or protected access modifier. While it may sound a bit complex in words, it is straightforward in reality. So, let's delve into a small practical example to understand what this means. Let's imagine that we have several classes. The first class will be called person, which will describe a person, and the second class will be called car, which will describe a car. Initially, let's work with the person class. We won't implement friend functions for now. Instead, let's just describe our classes. We'll rewrite the code later to understand how friend functions can be useful. So, in the person class, let's create a private access modifier and specify that we have several fields here, age and the user's name. Additionally, I'll have a public access modifier, where we will have only one method called infoCar. I'll implement this method a bit later, and for now, let's continue working with the car class. In the car class, I'll also have a private access modifier, where I'll have only one field, the car's name. I'll also have a public access modifier, and in this access modifier, we'll have the same method called infoCar. And now, I want to create a method in which I'll pass an object based on the person class and an object based on the car class. In this method, I'll simply output information that a certain user with a specific name has a car named so-and-so. I'll take the user's name from the name field and the car's name from its name field. Let's try to implement this and see if we can make it work. So, first, let's define the parameters. Here, I specify that my first parameter is essentially the car object. In this particular example, it would be much easier for us to get the car object by reference rather than as a pointer. The reason is that if you are working with an array, you might need to use a pointer so that you can shift the pointer. That is, you can access the first element, then the second element of the array, and so on. Here, since I just need to take the value of the object and start working with it without performing any shifts or additional actions, it will be much easier for me to accept it not as a pointer but as a regular reference. To do this, I just need to add an ampersand before the parameter. In exactly the same format, I'll accept the second object. This will be our person. Here, I'll also take it by reference, so I put an ampersand before the parameter name. Let it also be called person. Now let's output some information on the screen. For example, I'll write here, a person named, and then I suggest outputting the person's name itself. To do this, I refer to person and name. This way, I'll output the name of the person being passed in. Additionally, we'll write another string here, such as has a car. After the string, I'll also refer to the car object being passed in and output the name of the car. Let's also add a new line. And you can immediately notice an error. It's saying that I can access the object being passed in, but I can't access a field like name. After all, this name field is private. However, I'll remind you that we don't have access to private fields through an object. That's why we get an error here. In the first case, when we try to retrieve the person's name, there is no error because we are currently in the person class, and we can easily access this name field. There are no problems here. And we'll get a similar issue if I copy this method and paste it into the car class. So now everything is happening the other way around. Since we are now in the car class, I can access this parameter, but I cannot access the name. That is, we get an error either there or here. To fix this error, we can use friend functions. So, this will be a function that is friendly to both classes. And this friendly function will have access to all private variables and methods. Well, let's create such a function. To do this, we need to copy the previous function and write it before the main function. Now, let's delete this function from the car class. Next, we need to specify that the InfoCar function will be a friend to both the car class and the person class. To indicate this, we write the word friend here, meaning that we are creating a friend function. Then, we need to declare the prototype of this function. I'll remind you that to write the prototype of a function, it's enough to simply write the first line of the function. We do the same for the second class. Thus, we are stating that the InfoCar function is now a friend function for both classes. And even now, you may still notice that we have an error from the beginning of the program. The program still underlines the parameter car. This error occurs because the program sees that we are creating a class person in which various fields are created. And then it sees that I am creating a friend function. But right away, in the friend function, it encounters the word car, and we understand that at this stage, when the program encounters this word, it has not yet read about our future class car. That is, the program does not know yet that this class exists. To prevent the program from showing this error, we need to declare the prototype of the other class car before the class person. To do this, we simply write class car and put a semicolon. Thus, our program will work in the following format. It will read all the lines of code, read that we have the prototype of the class car, and we simply declared this name. Then it reads our class person and goes through all the fields. It sees that we have a friend method, and the program does not break because it knows that this word is already present in the program. Next, it reads the class car in a similar way, where there are also fields with a friend function, and there are no errors as well. Finally, there is no error at the end either. All because we fixed the unclear error with the word car. Now, let's, for verification purposes, create a few objects and run our program. First, let's create an object BMW. And then we need to create a constructor in which we will take one parameter. For this, in the car class, we write a construction like this, where this parameter will be the name. And through a pointer, I will indicate that we will set the value in the name field to the one we received from the user. Let's write a similar constructor for the other class. The only difference is that we will change the name for the constructor to person. Now, return to our main function to specify when creating an object that we are passing the name of this object. BMW. Using the same logic, let's create another object based on the person class. This object can be named John, and I will also pass some data to this object. Now, all we have left to do is to simply call the InfoCar function and then pass objects like BMW and John to this function. Now, if we run the program, we'll notice that everything is processed correctly, and the message has been successfully displayed. So, without these friend functions, we wouldn't have been able to implement a similar scenario. But with friend functions, we declare this function outside the class and specify that it is a friend. Now, when we pass various objects to it, we can access the values with private access modifiers through these objects. Well, that's an interesting topic. I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and if so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That's it for me. See you all soon. Goodbye.